We did it!
Yay!
Yay!
So how are you?
I'm doing really well considering. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm so glad that we finally are connecting. It's taken us
I know.
forever. So welcome again, Michelle, for being here. I'm so glad that you're visiting with me today because I've been noticing that you have been making YouTube videos on uh,
Yes.
therapy techniques. So tell us a little bit about your therapy background and what brings you to this.
Well, I graduated from the U of A with a degree in psychology, and then I ended up going into the fire service for 22 years.
Oh.
So I was the first female down in Sierra Vista, my hometown, and I worked down there for about a year and a half, and then I got on Tucson Fire, and I worked as a hazmat tech, a firefighter, an engineer, and a medic for a little over 22 years.
Wow.
And then I realized that I think about 10 or 15 years in, it's a 20-year retirement that you can, apply for. And the job was just getting more and more hostile and difficult. And now I think a lot of people now understand what I'm talking about, because it's the same mentality that we're all now, people are shocked that we're dealing with this, but this is how the way things have been going for quite a while. So I realized I had to prepare to do something else and to retire. So I went back to school. I got my master's in counseling. Mm-hmm. And I started doing that at about 2006. And then I retired from the fire department in 2011. And I've been doing the therapy since then, private practice. Mm-hmm. And I also teach the master's program, some of the classes for that, for the University of Phoenix online. I've been doing that for many years now too.
Wow, that's cool. That's a really cool thing to be doing.
And now, I say I'm semi-retired, but I'm still working a lot. Less one-on-one with clients. I'm doing more of the instruction and facilitation. And right now I'm just doing all my client sessions by phone. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do something during this time. It was really frustrating to not be part of the front lines anymore when there's something like this going on. And I just thought, well, let me put these classes out there, because at the very least, maybe we'll get some people curious about cognitive behavioral therapy or going to therapy, or, maybe we can demystify it or make it a little less scary for people, so they can understand that a lot has changed with therapy over the years. It's no longer, it doesn't have to be a horrendously painful process necessarily. There's ways, especially with the CBT and the EMDR, where, it was kind of Freud that wanted us to sit and remember everything, and he had some good ideas, but a lot of his stuff, is antiquated. So we know now it's not the memories that necessarily keep us traumatized. It's the way we think about what happened and the way we think about what's happening now. So we have a lot more control when we realize we have choices in what we're thinking and believing and how we're responding or reacting to things. Mm-hmm. So there's so much reactivity right now, except for with Ruby. Ruby's very calm. This is Ruby, my little pup.
She's a sweetie pie.
She's one of my therapy dogs. The other therapy dog is Max, but he doesn't want to do any therapy right now. He's kind of cranky.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But so I think that we're seeing so much reactivity And a lot of what I do is teach about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system and how those systems work. You know, I got very familiar with those on the fire department, with that fight, flight, or freeze response. And there can be a lot of good done to learn about that system, because it's essentially the gas and the brakes of your brain. And your brain is the command center of everything else in your life. So understanding those two systems, the autonomic nervous system, understanding how certain techniques can, you know, the left side's the logical side, the right side's the emotional side. We get triggered and that blood flow just boink. So the logical side can't communicate with the emotional side. And we're seeing a lot of that. You know, we're seeing people at the grocery store. We're seeing, you know, just not being able to think logically and connect it up. And a lot of that is fear-based. You know, when you get scared, it triggers that system. So I help people figure out how to recognize that's the thinking that's going on for them, or that's the thinking that's going on for other people. So what do you need to do to calm your parasympathetic response, to get that blood flow going back and forth, to calm you down so that you can have a good response to something? Also, how to identify somebody else is having a problem. And so do I need to help them? Do I need to get away from them? Do I need to protect myself? You know, those are all, I think, going to be more important skills as we go along. So I thought free classes can't hurt.
So I'm curious, so what are some of the techniques that you suggest to people to be able to self-regulate?
Well, there's many tools that I cover in the videos. Each video is about, it's 10 or less minutes. I was trying for 7, and then I got a little long on some of them, but I'm going to keep them under 10. And what we're going down is the template of the book that I'm going to finish here, the No BS Guide to Mental Health. And I say it's no BS because I'm a pretty straightforward person. You know, I was a blue collar worker for 22 years, and I try to just cut to the chase. It's not a book I'm writing to get, you know, any kind of accolades, academic accolades for, or anything like that. I'm just trying to make the information simple and easy for people to digest. So I cover things like how important your breathing is, and what the physiological problems are that happen when you don't breathe correctly, or you don't exhale actually correctly, because you know, you're keeping all that carbon dioxide in your body. And as a medic, I went to many 911 calls for people in panic attacks, and really all they needed to do was start exhaling enough of that carbon dioxide, because they're getting acidotic. So that's one of the tools. We were talking earlier about how we both like the guided imagery, guided meditation, hypnosis, and there's all that stuff is free online or very cheap on Audible. There's some really good stuff for that. And then the cognitive behavioral therapy and the EMDR work with the idea that we think, we feel, and then we react. That's usually how we're wired up. And so if you're having reactions or habits or addictions or reactions that you want to change, we kind of peel the onion on, okay, what are you thinking and believing that's causing the uncomfortable feeling, that's causing you to just, you know, react instead of stop and think and then have a response. And you actually have to practice those responses over and over again, just like a script. It's just like firefighting or self-defense. You know, you create a scenario that you want to make a good response to, and you practice it over and over again until it's automatic.
I think that's fascinating that you can bring in your experience as a firefighter into your counseling world. I think that's really pretty ingenious.
Well, there's a lot of self-discipline and strategy behind, what you do as a firefighter. And we can use that in our lives for sure, for many different things, not just emergencies, but for things involving, family, parenting. I'm not a parent, and the reason I'm not a parent is because I was an aunt since I was like 7.
Oh.
So I'm one of those people that I can tell you what you're supposed to do, or what, and I've mentored lots of kids. I mentor 3 girls. So I understand the way their brains are growing and the way they work. And I have some good tools and skills for reaching kids maybe a little better, or for parenting. But I'm the kind of person, like, I don't need to have a doctor who had a heart attack to tell me how to treat my heart attack. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a little better that they understand.
Sometimes those aunties are really actually, they actually have a really important role in our children's lives.
Yeah, I don't have that maternal oh my God, the baby's crying, I've got to just make her stop crying instinct like a mother does. Mm-hmm. So I have a little more of a detached aunt-like viewpoint from things that isn't as, caught up in that emotional, response.
Yes. Yeah, so, and that brings us back into the parasympathetic and sympathetic, the nervous system, and more ways of being able to regulate between the fight and flight and freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So what
and EMDR actually, you can use even just a template. I try to instruct my clients on how it works, why we think it works, and how they can start to kind of use that template, because the idea is that bilateral stimulation gets the circulation in your brain going back into where both hemispheres can communicate. But I've found there's lots of other things, and so did Francis Shapiro, the doctor that started up the EMDR. We realized it's not just eye movement desensitization and reprocessing that works, but it's also bilateral stimulation with buzzing or hearing, or really other things to increase circulation, like exercise or heat, taking hot showers or hot baths. That can also stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system and get the blood flow, get your blood dilated and get the blood flow corrected in your brain.
Or I've heard also, like, splashing cold water on your face is supposed to activate the vagus nerve, and that has a lot to do with regulating between the different hemispheres in the fight, flight, and freeze response.
Yeah, that's also a technique we'll use for if somebody has an irregular heartbeat or a really, really fast heartbeat, and you stimulate that vagal nerve, it slows down the heart, which is the heart, the brain, that's all interconnected. And when you slow your heart down, that actually sends a message to the brain that it's okay to slow down there too. So yeah, that cold water splash stimulates that nerve.
So is that something that you learned being a firefighter?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually the breathing I learned, and we used to have people, remember when we used to have people breathe into brown paper bags?
Yes, I do remember that.
And it would work, but it would only work because you got the person to focus on, their breathing and making sure they weren't just taking little huffs of air in and not exhaling properly. So yeah, like anything, you start out with kind of the right concept, and then who knows, breathing in brown bags might come back.
But we don't really want to be huffing.
Ruby says she doesn't want to breathe in a brown bag. No, you don't have to breathe in a brown bag. Animals are good for stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh.
Right? I mean, we were cracking up earlier because Ruby's so cute, and we were just going,
she's a darling. She is really sweet.
I am. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, there I am.
I know. Sometimes with the background, it makes things disappear.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yes, I
So
know
I'm
you.
curious.
You're very cute.
So
Yeah.
I'm really curious. How did you get involved in teaching for the U of the Phoenix? What's that called? University of Phoenix.
The University of Phoenix. You know, it was at a time where I was on the fire department, and I love to teach and instruct. And a friend was asking me, you know, are you teaching? And I said I would love to, but my schedule is so crazy. With the fire department, I don't always have, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays off. So some weeks I have Tuesday, Thursdays off, so I can't really do a regular class. And she brought up, and this was probably, gosh, a good 14 years ago. I think I've been doing it that long, but right at the beginning, you know, when online was you know, University of Phoenix used to be the only online school.
I know. I remember seeing advertisements for it. That's like one of the few schools that, you know, I've just seen forever.
Yeah, the guy that started the school wanted people who couldn't afford to be without working for 4 years, or had, you know, didn't have family that could provide for them to go to college for 4 years. He wanted to provide a way for working class people to get educations. And then technology stepped in with the you know, the internet, and boom. So a friend told me about that, and I thought, well, I'm an alumni. I graduated. That's where I got my master's. It wasn't an online program then for counseling. It is now mostly. And that's what I'm teaching. I'm teaching the substance abuse, personality disorders, you know, there's a bunch of other ones that come up.
So do you get to choose what you want to teach?
Kind of. I mean, you submit what you can. Oh yeah, you should look into this. You submit. You'd be great.
I know. Maybe I didn't even think about this until talking to you about it.
You look into they kind of assess like your background, because they want people who are in the field. And they'll assess your background, and then they'll set you up for whatever classes they think that you'd be best for. I started teaching the associate's program, health and wellness, psychology, stuff like that. Then I started teaching the bachelor's program, and now I'm in the master's part. And then they have a year-end assessment where they go to Phoenix. They fly everybody out to Phoenix. And they do a full weekend where we test skills and stuff. So sometimes I'm part of that panel as well.
So that's a live in-person part of the master's training then, as they come and do that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I mean, you know, a lot of the stuff that we train in, you really do need to see the person's effect and the person's skills in real life. And usually, though, by the time people have gone through that much of the classes and the training, they're all pretty well ready to do the work, and a lot of them are already working in the field already. So that's another reason that the online thing can work, because you're already getting people who have been vetted in the field. They're just they're just getting more education and more training. So
well, that's pretty cool that you get to do that. That's a way of giving back.
I grew up in a family where you didn't just take care of yourself, you took care of your neighbors, you took care of the people at your church, my dad took care of the people who rented from him. He would, buy clothing and take it down to Mexico.
Wow.
I never grew up with the idea that you just, take care of yourself. I grew up with a lot of empathy and a lot of good structure, and I think my parents were good people, so they've instilled that in me, and that's why I'm working with the women's community. Started up a Facebook page for women. All right, can we put links to my stuff below
Yeah, totally. That's a good idea. We'll put links in what you call the show notes.
Okay, cool. Because I have the YouTube channel, and that's all free classes on all the major stuff that I find over and over again. I keep giving my clients classes on things like, what are boundaries? How do you work with them? What's dysfunction? How do you know you're in a dysfunctional situation? And we all are in a dysfunctional situation right now, and we can tell because we're confused and we're scared and we're not sure who to trust. And it seems like things are upside down, and so I'm very familiar with how that feels. Yeah, I'm doing those classes, but I also have the alt community. It's Accepting Lesbians of Tucson. So we are accepting lesbians, but we're also just accepting. So any women that feel like they want to be part of community with other women, we're there, and we're doing small, safe gatherings. As things start to open up, we'll start doing more, smaller things, because mental health is a big part of this crisis too, and isolation and all of that. So I tried to jump ahead with the YouTube channel and the Facebook page, because we don't want people getting, depressed or overwhelmed or feeling alone. So that was some of the ways I figured that it could help with my community. My dad used to ride his bicycle around and just see what people needed, because you could do that back then, and the communities are small, and now our communities are all virtual and they're everywhere. So, but we could still do that.
That's pretty cool. So that you've set up different virtual communities online, the Alt Hub, and that's your specialty, would you say, is working with women?
No, actually, I speak man. Like from working on the fire department, I can understand a lot of the male perspective, the male dynamic. I worked with guys for 22 years, all kinds of different people, and communicated with them routinely, and figured out how best, I guess, to kind of present some of these ideas so that they're not, too overwhelming or complicated. Not that guys are stupid, they're not, but I mean, right. Some guys don't want to do therapy because they're worried they're going to get blamed or shamed and judged, and it's just the opposite. So and when you can clearly explain things to people using kind of a facts and science, even our mental health stuff, we've done so much more research and experiments and testing and things that we've grown a lot, and we know a lot more than we did ever before. So I'd hopefully will continue to. But being in that male culture, I can understand a lot of the hardships the guys have. So I have male clients that are military, police, fire, and I welcome them for sure. But I do see a special need for a community for women. Men kind of run everything else, and men can go everywhere else. And so having a place for sisterhood, where we can nurture and take care of each other, is good, because men have the brotherhood everywhere. So I don't see it as an exclusatory thing. It's really not. It's just something to help women who feel safe when they're just with other women. So
I think that's awesome, and we definitely have to link any links that you have to. Do you have a website?
Yes, I've got a website, a YouTube page, and the Facebook page for women now.
Okay. Cool, because each therapist has their own unique way of approaching therapy, and their unique specialties, and who they feel more comfortable speaking with in the therapeutic room. And being able to have different strengths is really important. So it sounds like you've got some really good strengths with CBT. Are you trained in EMDR? Are you certified in that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Level 1. So nothing too complicated.
Okay.
If people are dissociative, they may need to find somebody with a higher level of training. probably be better. There's EMDR level 2.
Okay.
But it, it'll work for most people without any problems, as long as there's not any kind of severe disassociation or anything like that.
So you practice in Tucson.
Yes.
And you do private practice right now, and you're seeing people primarily through the phone right this minute at this time.
Yeah, right now I'm doing phone, and I think I'm gonna move more towards being more educational style. I'm more of a solutions type of gal. I see that there's a lot of value for people who need talk therapy and who need, for years, the only person that I could really trust to talk to about stuff going on for me was my therapist. And so it was important that I see her physically once a week, because I needed somebody rational to tell me, hey, you're looking a little tired, or what are you, are you, when you don't have your mom around anymore to tell you that you've lost too much weight, or
Right.
or something.
I wish that were the case.
I've done that. Well, yeah. Yeah, hopefully nobody tells you you're not doing well, but yeah, I needed good healthy feedback from somebody, because I was in a very dysfunctional workplace situation. And so she was the only one that I relied upon for quite a long time. So I see a lot of value in that kind of therapy, and being there during crisis for somebody and helping them through it. And I've done that a lot. I am better suited for people, I think, who really want to get solutions going and start changing. If you're still in a place where you're just recently traumatized and you really need somebody to just kind of hold that foundation for you, I'm not sure I'm going to be working that much with that, versus giving the classes, helping people move forward when they're ready. That's more my style.
Yeah, and I'm more the immediate trauma response.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So I can send people your way for that, and then when they're ready to start working on CBT, off we go. Teamwork.
Exactly. And I mean, that's one thing that I really enjoyed about Tucson. What I really appreciate about Tucson is the fact it feels like there's a lot of positive collaboration that happens here in Tucson. And
we're really fortunate to be here during this whole thing. I was telling people early on, I don't know how Tucson does it, but whenever there's some kind of a big crisis, we seem to really rally well. And I think we have right now, much better leadership in our city than we have in a long time. I think, our emergency response, I could say whatever I want to about the attitude towards women on the fire department, but the bottom line is the emergency response here in Tucson is excellent. So the medical aspect of our community, we have some of the best and most brilliant doctors and minds and hardworking nurses, and so I know there's problems always with any system, but being in Tucson made me feel a lot safer than to be anywhere else.
Wow, that's actually that's high praise for Tucson.
Well, we have the U of A. They're big innovators, and right now we need people who have ideas and who are innovative and who can do the research to find out. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel. There's other countries that have gone through this many times. So people willing to explore and experiment, and that's a good place for Tucson. Is that we have so many scientists here, and we have tons of people who've immigrated here, that like the best and brightest. I have a friend who's an astrophysicist. He's here from Brazil.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a whole conglomeration. We're kind of a hub for international science and all kinds of stuff. So it's Tucson seems to sidestep major disasters, pretty well, or we're just better prepared for it, so.
Or maybe the fact that there's such a community feel here, because, even in the musician world, there's a lot of GoFundMe initiatives to help musicians that are out of work. And
Right.
the restaurants are really pulling together. And then now that I'm starting to get into the therapy world here in Tucson, I'm seeing so much collaboration and people who really support each other.
Yeah, I think that there is a common good goal here, which is for people to create healthy, good, happy lives, for everybody. And I think that in Tucson, a lot of people are on board with that. Yeah, so I feel out of all the places you could end up right now, we're kind of in a really good spot. So
that just makes me so happy.
Oh yeah, I'd rather be in Tucson. I mean, think about it. Really, the only natural disasters we have are ones that we might cause for ourselves, like staying out in the heat without water, or driving into a wash during monsoon.
Well, don't people get tickets for doing that?
Yeah. Keep the fire department employed. No, but I mean, it's usually, there's really not much to be afraid of here. We don't have big, knock on wood, we don't have big earthquakes. We don't have hurricanes or tornadoes. Really, we have a lot of heat, and that's about it. And sometimes the flooding, from the and the rattlesnakes, which you just gotta stay out of their way,
Right, they're fascinating. So Michelle, talk to me a little bit about some of your hobbies. What are some of the things that you really like to do? I hear and I see little posts on Facebook about like some motorcycle stuff.
Yeah, I know. I've graduated. When I first got on the fire department, my very first call was to a motorcycle accident. The woman would have lived, no question, but she was on the back of a motorcycle. And so I was 22 or 23 at the time, and I'd been thinking about getting a motorcycle. And then I thought about it again. People look at my lifestyle and they're like, they think I'm a pretty big risk taker, because I was a firefighter and I've done things like skydiving and mountain bike riding and all that kind of stuff, scuba diving. But knowledge is power. So when you understand how things work, it takes away a lot of the fear, and you can safely do a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, but you just got to understand how to do it with the proper equipment and all that. So finally at 50, I think it was 52 or 53. I think it was 53. Yeah. I bought my first motorcycle. I've been riding bicycles forever. I've ridden the L Tour many times. I've mountain bike raced all through Arizona. And I would not allow myself to get on a motorcycle because I knew once I got on the motorcycle, I would never want to ride the bicycle. I knew I would love it.
It's
and
really
I'm happy I saved it till now, because it's so great to find something that you enjoy so much. It makes me want to wake up in the morning and go for a ride, so.
Where do you go riding? Where do you like to ride?
We've been going, well, I was initially with the first motorcycle that I now totaled, unfortunately. Slid out from under me, and then a big, huge German off-road RV ran over it. It was so sad. I turned around just in time to watch this big truck just crush her. It was just, but I was glad I wasn't on her.
Right.
You know, I had all my gear on. I got a little bump and scrape and stuff. My face was saved, completely saved by my helmet.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I will always wear all the gear all the time, because that was just all of a sudden I was riding, and it reminded me of the time a horse bucked me off. I'm riding along on the horse, and all of a sudden the horse's head was gone. And I had maybe a second to go, what the, you know, next thing you know, I was flying off the horse. So it was the same thing on the motorcycle. It was like the ground just went out from under me, and I could just feel it getting pulled out from under my hands. So the new motorcycle it feels way safer. I think that now that I kind of know the difference, because I sat on that motorcycle and I bought it because I wanted an Indian motorcycle and I liked how it felt, and I didn't know any better. So now having the newer motorcycle, I could tell a big difference between the automatic brakes and all of that. So my first motorcycle was Wildfire, and her name held up to her personality. So this time I'm riding Peaches.
Oh, Peaches. Oh, that sounds a lot safer.
Yeah, so that when I get on Peaches, you know, when you get on a bike called Wildfire, trouble can ensue, right? But now I've named her Peach. The new bike is Peaches. So when I get on Peaches, I think, okay, we're going to have a peachy ride.
Nice.
Yeah, so I go all over, but I like to ride down to Sonoyta. I grew up in Sierra Vista, in the Sierra Vista Bisbee Tombstone area, so we were just down in Bisbee, and we were wearing our masks.
Oh, good.
Because we want to show empathy. You know, I can only imagine people who've lost somebody, and they go out to get essentials or whatever, and they see people with this, you know, blasé attitude. So, you know, I'm not afraid of getting the virus. I don't want to spread it. Right. And I also want to show empathy and compassion, because we've lost 100,000 people, and that's nothing. I mean, if we lost 100,000 people in a terrorist attack, you know, everybody would be on board with that. So that's the other thing I can point out in the cognitive behavioral therapy. I think that a lot of people right now are really stuck in the stages of grief, just for the loss of the regular way things used to be. So there's a lot of denial still happening.
Yeah, a lot of grief and loss. And also, I know I've noticed with my clients the uncomfortableness of uncertainty.
Oh, yeah. Pema Chodron. Did you ever read her book? Mm-mm. It was Comfort Through Uncertainty. She's the Buddhist nun that, well, she was a model or something. Then she studied and became a Buddhist nun. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about Pema Chodron is I used to try to understand all the Buddhist stuff, and I would just sometimes just get really frustrated with it because I was like, what does this mean? But she's able to really explain it and put it into some good terminology. Oh, cool. Have you ever read her? Oh my God. Okay,
I know of her, but I haven't read her books.
No, I love that. And she's got a really good lecture that's Audible book only called Don't Bite the Hook. And it's about anger. I studied that for probably almost a decade before I think like I really understand what she's talking about to master feelings of anger and use it in a more productive manner than being destructive. Yeah.
Right. And because anger is one of those things can totally go the wrong direction.
Yeah, you could use it for power. You could use it to energize you, to make changes or come up with solutions or create things that will help the situation, or it can just be a destructive force. So
Well, this has been really cool talking with you. I've been looking
I
forward
know.
to
I
this
always have fun with
interview.
you.
I
We
know,
need to do
right?
this more. Yeah.
I know, right? We should have some Zoom talks in general. But yeah, so the CBT, EMDR, the motorcycle therapist.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm also a fan of women learning self-defense.
oh, interesting.
I'm
Okay.
a big, I'm a fan of the internal locus of control instead of the external locus of control. And right now, people with codependency are out there trying to control all the people not wearing masks, and they mean well,
Right.
and we're trying everything, we're shaming them and we're blaming them and we're doing all the, we're trying everything. We're trying just to be kind back to them, but it's such a crazy time that being able to identify whether you're safe or not. That's another thing I really work on with the EMDR and the CBT, because a lot of people's sympathetic nervous systems will react as if they're going to die or something, equally as bad is going to happen, and it's nowhere close.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to train people to think about things and go, hey, triage, just like in the fire service, is anyone going to die? And if no one's going to die, your problem is not unfixable.
Mm-hmm. And so much of the problem right now is that we don't know if people are going to die or not.
Well, we know they are going to die.
Well, we know that.
No, you don't know who
or when.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
yeah, and we don't know that most of the time anyway.
Oh, well, that's true.
This is a sure bet. Like, more people are going to die. There's no doubt about that. There's no question that there's going to be more. It is just a matter of how long it's going to take and who it will be. So I think a lot of people are struggling cognitively. I think we can look around and see that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to have an internal locus of control, to do what you can do, wear the masks, be kind. If you see somebody acting crazy or dangerous, don't try to correct them. Mm-hmm. Usually people don't learn well when they're angry or in their sympathetic response. I have a sign in my bathroom, and it's kind of harsh, but it says, "Don't argue with an idiot. People watching won't know the difference."
That's actually really good. I like that.
So I try to remember it, and it's not that people are stupid or they're idiots or whatever. It's they're struggling cognitively.
Well, and there's fear, and there's the uncertainty, and then forgetting that we have an internal locus of control.
And I think we're seeing the effects of our literacy problem, because literacy is not just you can read words out loud. Literacy means you can put those words together and comprehend the meaning that was intended by the writer or by that's all part of literacy. Wow. And in America, we have a big literacy problem. And I think that has led to a lot of the mistrust of the media and the lack of understanding. I remember when did you take statistics in college?
I didn't.
Oh my God, I had to take it for my degree for psychology. And I wasn't a math person at that time. That part of my brain hadn't really grown well. That's the other thing we're seeing these younger people do stupid stuff, and it's because their brain's not fully developed yet, and they don't have adults that are stepping in to say, no, you're not going to go spread this virus around. So that's another part of the problem. But literacy is a huge issue in America, and I think we're seeing why. I've run into so many people where you try to have a conversation with them, and they just derail it with craziness. And I think they're just, their brains would just get overwhelmed very easily, and they're not able to keep up with processing the information. So they just get angry and shut everything down.
Wow, that makes total sense, actually. I mean, the whole idea of our brains, that especially young people, their brains don't completely mature till they're about 24, 25 anyway.
Yeah, I heard 30 even.
Wow.
Yeah. That prefrontal cortex, it's a big design flaw, because that's the part of our brain that helps us decide, make good judgments, discern things, impulse control, and it develops last. And so if you've been put under a lot of stress, or you've abused substances or whatever, you know, your brain's, it's going to take a little longer for that part of your brain to go. So the math part of my brain, I was telling you about statistics. The math part of my brain was not that great. And then I got in the fire department and I had to take math stuff for the hydraulics, and I got better at it because I was just older, you know, but statistics taught me how to look at information. And I hated that class. And I thought, why the hell do I need this? But now I really get it, because you need to understand how that information was collected. And if the way that information was collected accurately and fairly, you know, how the experiment was done, what were the variables, how were they contained, you know, because there's good experiments and then there's not good experiments.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a good class in the end. The statistics was a good class.
So how do you apply statistics to what's going on right now with the COVID-19?
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand how to translate the statistics. I mean, I didn't at first. I thought it was, at first I was like, what? No, you know, and I had to kind of really get some good resources that I trusted to verify what was going on, including local people that I know that work, you know, doctors and nurses that are friends of mine, because we can't really trust the information that we're hearing from our leadership at all. So I had the capacity to do that because I know how to do that. But there's people that, you know, they're not stupid, but they just never have looked at things that way. They've got other areas of their brain that work very well, and what their, you know, specialties are and things like that. And I think it's just easier for us, for some of us, you know, to just stay in denial and pick a side and just follow the leader.
Well, it's always easier to follow a leader.
Yeah, the problem is the leader is the lemming, and he's leading everybody right off the cliff.
Right off that cliff.
So I think it's a fascinating time to be a cognitive behavioral therapist. It's at least helping me deal with the grief and the disappointment and, you know, the feelings that are coming up now with seeing, you know, just, we're kind of seeing the festering wound that's been here, you know, ever since the Civil War. It's been here, obviously. It's not gone away.
Oh, that brings up a whole nother angle of this whole issue that we're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of mental health issues going on right now in many different areas for many different people. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you interviewing me, and Ruby appreciates it too.
Yay. Hi, Ruby. Well, I am so happy that you've joined me today, and we'll definitely put any links down below. And Michelle, you do wonderful work, and it's so fun to see pictures of you getting on the motorcycle.
I know, I love it.
And other pictures of the support for women that you have, and I really appreciate all that as well. And
well, thank you for what you're doing, and I'll be sure to put, I want to get all your links so that I can.
Okay, all right.
Because that's how we do it in Tucson, right? We collaborate.